Chop it down. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. I just appreciate everybody watching. Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Boy, if I can have that goddamn song on repeat throughout the entire show, I surely will. Let me go ahead and add these guys to the show. There we go. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast provided to you by 214 Media. I am your host, Mual. Jamal Forrest, Hen Dog Maul, all that good stuff, man. And this is the Aftermath Show. I got my boy Hefe in the building. I don't know. Hey, why you switch up from Hefe from Jeff Gordon to Hefe, bro? What's going on with you, bro? Why you change your name? I never asked you that.
You do know that in Spanish, Jeff is Hefe, right?
Nah, I ain't know that. I'm not Spanish, bro. What you talking about? No, I don't know that.
Yeah, bro.
All right, okay.
Yeah, Hefe. Hefe also means boss. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong.
I knew what that meant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm about to say, but I believe I did
easy.
some research before, deeming myself.
Yeah, like guapo in Spanish is money, right? That's what that means.
You asking the
dinero. Yeah, dinero.
You asking the wrong guy.
See, look at you. You only know one word. I know a couple, but it ain't got nothing to do with what we got going on tonight, man. But Montel's in the building. Appreciate everybody checking in. As always, let me get the administrative item out of the way. And whichever way you are listening, or in this case watching, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Appreciate everybody checking in. And then obviously, we're going to get right into it today. The agenda-wise, my man Dre in this thing right quick. Boom. Agenda-wise, the Aftermath Show, man, you know what time it is on Tuesdays. We're going to close the book on Detroit and Washington and obviously do a quick preview of the Philadelphia Eagles, man. We got Jeff Warren of the Philadelphia Sports Table podcast, a good friend of me. I've been on the show several times and definitely wanted to chop it up with him as we geared up for Philly to see what we walking into. So we're going to go ahead and preview Philly for a quick second as well when Jeff comes on. So, Dre, you in the building, man. How you feeling, big dog?
I'm good, man. Like I said, I'm ready. Shit, man. Another little week, man. This is a losing week. What's up, Montel? You know what I'm saying? I told Maul last week, I said, we got to get my man Montel back on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciated that, Dre. I was watching the show. I heard you say that, and I immediately hit him up after and was like, yeah, I want to get on the show, especially – it's football season. We do off-season shows, but during the season, man, it's just it's different. It's a different vibe.
Exactly. Different energy.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. And then he got the
Brown
Montel
be sipping with me. That's another reason I wanted more. You know what I'm saying?
This is therapy, football therapy,
No, I respect that, boy. It's crazy though. You know what I'm saying? I be sipping sometimes, but it's always never when y'all are on the show for whatever reason. Like at the same time. I don't know, man. I gotta turn up with y'all boys. But listen, I see y'all in the chat. Monty, JB, Jay. Appreciate y'all checking in. Let's get this first thing out the way. And everybody in the chat, that's checking in, I want y'all to answer this question too. But actually, you know what? Before we get into Carson Wentz by himself, let's go ahead and answer from the show title, right? Unbothered or concerned about Washington after 2 weeks. We're taking everything into account, both games, obviously not just what happened in our last game, but are you unbothered or are you concerned about what we have seen so far? Is this something that has been triggering from years past? Is there some things that you're like, I see us turning a corner. I'm starting to understand what this team is doing, or I have some questions, but I think that they can overcome them. Anything, whatever way you want to go in terms of unbothered or being concerned, we're going to go ahead and talk about it right now. Fellas, I'm going to hand the floor to you. Whoever want to take the floor first, take this question first. Are you unbothered or are you concerned about Washington after the first 2 weeks?
For me, I'm honestly, It's hard to say because I mean I am a little bit concerned. I can't say I'm fully unbothered, and the reason why I kind of want to go to unbothered route is because it's week 2, and typically week 2 you still don't have a true grasp of what you are. But then the concerning part, of course, for me is the defense. Like the defense still hasn't shown any encouraging signs that they're changing, that they're improving. I mean, they just still look really bad. Like I mean, and we're still talking about the same issues we've been talking about for years now: the miscommunications, the missed assignments, people aren't doing what they're supposed to do within the scheme. And like I said, a lot of that to me, I mean, the coaches aren't getting their message across if that's the case. And that's really concerning in year 3. But again, it's still week 2. I know last year they did improve the defense later in the year, but I mean, you can't wait that late. You want to get off to a fast start with this defense. But I will say one of the things that does make me lean towards the other way as well is the offense. Because I do think the offense is kind of exceeding my expectations early on. Now, I did think the offense was going to be really improved this year. I thought they would be better. But so far, I mean, they're kind of exceeding my expectations because I didn't know they'd start off as fast as they have, even though they had their real bad first half against Detroit. I mean, they put up enough in that second half to come back and win a game, but they just had no help from the other side of the football by that point. But the offense can't get off the slow starts. But even with that said, they still have exceeded my expectations so far. So you got kind of a yin and a yang thing going on right now with the offense and the defense. But luckily working in their favor is that offense wins games in 2022. So if your offense is, doing what it's supposed to do, putting up points, they're going to be in a lot of games and they're never really going to be out of a lot of games. So they're going to give themselves chances on a weekly basis.
I'm going to go unbothered. And I'm typically a little bit pessimistic. I'm traumatized from years past. But I think the difference between last year, week 2, after week 2, when we beat Atlanta, we beat the Giants in week 2 last year, but I still was like really concerned because I knew, I was like, okay, the defense is bad, but then, Taylor Heineke's the quarterback. I know we're going to get some inconsistencies out of him. This year, and Mual, you pointed to this today on B. Mitch and JP Finley, you know what I'm saying? Congrats on the show, brother, but one of the things you pointed out.
I didn't even know he was on there.
See, I didn't either, Dre. You did it on the low.
Yeah, snuck up on me. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate them boys for having me again.
Yeah. But one of the things you pointed out is our receivers can win. And they can win against anybody. And I think when you have an offense that's explosive, but and you seen it last week, we can score in bunches. It's hard to lose in this league. Like he mentioned, offense today is the recipe. But not only that, while the defense is concerning, and we go back to last year and again to the traumas, but I point to the fact that if you look at weeks 5 through 17 last year, we weren't great by any means, but we were competent in a sense. It's like we weren't terrible on third down. And when I say 5 through 17, I speak about the game from the Saints. And you guys remember when we played the Saints, the Broncos, teams like that. We were able to step up a little bit defensively. And we, even with the Packers, those were all winnable games, but the offense was so stagnant in those games. I think if the defense can play to that level of last year, and it wasn't at an elite level, but it was just competent, maybe 21 or 24, you know what I mean? If we can get to that level at the rate that this offense can score, I think that we can win a lot of games that people don't even see us winning. And that's the thing. When you have an offense like we do, you can play with anybody. And I know you see the Bills and how they blowing teams out. And I said it in the chat today. You know what I'm saying? This is my prediction. I think, now I believe that Philly is the better team, but I think we're capable of beating Philly. Even Philly, just because we can score. Not saying we're better than Philly. Not saying that if we played them 10 Sundays out of 10, we would win 10. No, but I think this upcoming Sunday, they're coming off a short week. It was a big dub, and they just look like the monsters of the NFC. That's a team that we can beat because we can score. Now, the defense does have to step up, but all they have to do is make a couple turnovers here and there, and you don't know what team you could get with this Washington team. That offense is scary, and the defense is scary bad, but I do see them getting it together. I don't see them being this bad all year long.
Oh, I'm concerned, man. I'm concerned, Brad. And what's really concerned, first off, my bad. Corey, I see you. Benz, I see you. confidence levels in us winning this week. We can talk about that. I won't forget your question. I'm concerned because, fellas, we went down 22-0 against the Detroit Lions. Like, we didn't score in 6 or 7 possessions to start the game. And it's not just the fact that the pass rush was really getting home and affecting Carson Wentz, and obviously the offensive line was struggling at some point. Eventually, in the second half, the offensive line got better. Like, it showed itself on the tape. They got better in their one-on-ones. They got better in their blitz pickups. But in the first half, nothing changed drastically in terms of how they were really protecting Carson Wentz. Like, nothing changed drastically in terms of how they were defending against pass rushers. They just got better. It's like they woke up. But secondly, my point is, when I say they went down 22-0, Scott Turner implemented some plays in the second half where it's like put it this way, Curtis Samuel, his usage, he only had like 4 plays where he ran out of the backfield. 3 of those came in the second half. We all know that the wheel route came out of the backfield in the second half. There were some other ways that they provided some mismatches or misdirections. It didn't yield like big gains, but it just gave the defense a look that they had to account for. Second thing, when you're facing the cover 1 and cover 0 pressure looks, like when you have those different looks, in the second half, you're going empty sets. Like, you're spreading these guys out. Like, all right, if you want to send that cover 1, cover 0 blitz, go ahead. But I got Antonio Gibson on the outside who's going to beat you quickly at the line of scrimmage, or I'm going to have Terry McLaurin in the slot run a whip route and beat your best cornerback because you can't check him. Like, there's a ton of things that Scott Turner is very aware of mentally. But he used it in the second half, and it's like, why are you letting anybody with the weapons that you have dictate how you're going to call a game? And that's what and when I say I'm concerned, I 100% agree that this offense is explosive. Like, we seen it. We seen how quickly they could score. Their first touchdown drive against the Detroit Lions in the second half, it was like they covered so much yards in like 4 minutes. Like, you saw how quickly they can do it. But I need Scott Turner's mentality to change. Like, you prepared. You know what Detroit is doing. They have an identity on both sides of the football. I'm going to pressure your ass on defense. I'm going to run the ball on offense. So if you are going up against a pressure defense in Aaron Glenn and what they're doing and how they disguise certain things, why are you saying, all right, I know what you're going to do. Let me counter it, or I'm going to sit here. I'm going to wait for you to send that blitz. I'm going to counter it by keeping certain people in pass protection. All right, how about you be on the offensive, you be aggressive, and that's what he did in the second half. So I'm only saying that to say I'm concerned, because if you're talking about a 17-game season where you have to count on Scott Turner being ready from the get-go and not dictate or not allowing defensive coordinators to dictate the pace and not forcing him and the offense to control the tempo and control the narrative of how the game is going to go on that side of the football, I can't count on him for 17 games. So I'm concerned, not that the offense isn't explosive, but I'm concerned that I don't know if we're going to be able to see a team score and consistently stay in a game from quarter 1 until the end of the game in quarter 4. That's where I'm at.
But, Walt, too, the wild thing about that is the first game, Scott was the complete opposite of what he was against Detroit. They came out firing on all cylinders, and they probably could have went up 21-3 in that game on the first 3 drives of Curtis Samuel doesn't fumble. But then he comes out in the Detroit game, as you say, and I agree 100%. You don't let the other team dictate. You come in and you play your game. And that's what kind of scared me about Detroit, because they came in hungry. And Dan Campbell, just kind of paying attention and watching him the last couple of years, especially with the Hard Knocks. He's a coach, and I love what he does as a coach as far as getting the players to feed off of his energy. And Washington wasn't ready for that on either side of the football. Not even just offense or defense. We talking about special team. Like, all 3 sides of the football was clicking for Detroit and I felt like they played like the energy that their coach gives off. Like, we all kind of laughed at Dan Campbell last year in the offseason. We called him corny and, all kinds of names. But it's resonating with Detroit. And it showed this week 2, that we just weren't fucking ready. And that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable from every coach on the team. Like I said, Scott, Jack Del Rio, Ron, but really Scott Turner, because I do feel like the offense will be the strength of this team. And you don't want other teams dictating what you're going to do when you do have the talent that you have on that field. And I mean, like I said, you have wide receivers that can win all over the field. Don't let the other team dictate. So I agree 100% more, but at the same time, it's like, you came out ready for it. And Jacksonville was a hungry team. Jacksonville, I mean, you know, they may not have been as hungry as Detroit, but they have the number 1 pick the last 2 years. People were talking them up all off season. You came out prepared for them. So why didn't you come out prepared for Detroit? So it is going to be a little worried that each on a game by game basis, we may have to deal with, is Scott going to have this offense ready? Are we going to dictate, or is the other team going to dictate today? So that's a good point.
Well, I also believe that Scott, like the rest of the staff, and I mentioned this to you earlier in the week, Jamal, I think they just adjust late. I think they are more reactors than proactive. I just think that's just who they are. And it doesn't just pertain to on the field. It's even off the field. I just think that they are more reactive as a coaching staff, which is why I think the team as a whole, and you've seen this with Ron Rivera teams, they typically get better later in the season. I really do think that this team will be a better team later in the season. And we're talking about Detroit. Let's give them some credit because, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I mentioned 3 weeks ago at Kenya's Cookout, we're gonna lose to the Lions because think back, when have we beat Detroit in Detroit? And not only that, like you mentioned, that's a hungry team. That's a team with a rebuilt O-line, and something that I mentioned previously that I wish this team would do. But their style of football is unorthodox right now because they can really run the ball. And you see Jared Goff pick us apart. That's another thing. We never really play well against Jared Goff either. Like, Jared Goff has always picked us apart for some odd reason. But, like, that Detroit team, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. And I'm not hyping them up to the extent that, you know, a lot of other people are. But that's a tough team to beat right now because they can really run the ball and they can get after the quarterback. I don't think that they're great defensively, but like that's a tough matchup for most teams. So I'm really not really frustrated with that loss because that when I tell you that they are really unorthodox. When you go and play Detroit this year, you may come out with a victory, but you're gonna feel it in the end because
you know Montel
offensively and they gonna get out your QB. So,
and I was gonna say the Lions and Jaguars, Montel, both of them. I think both of them are gonna be tough all year for any team. Lions and Jags.
Absolutely.
So I mean, and we kind of looked
24-0 Jacksonville.
That's what I'm saying. They came out and did what they did to the Colts, and these are two teams. Like I look at it, like people kept looking at the schedule saying these were two layup teams that we were going to play, Jacksonville and
that's where
Lions.
Frustration comes in,
and that's the thing. I think the perception of those teams are going to change totally by the end of the season. But the team that I really had the two layups. I mean, not to get off topic, but Denver had Seattle and Houston the first two games, and those were layup games in my opinion. But the games we had, in my opinion, we're facing two teams on the up and come that can get your ass if you ain't ready, and we got our ass got in the second one.
Nah, that's a fact. I think that's probably the expectation part is probably what's hurting people that's really upset. Like the people who are saying we should have won this, we should be easily 2-0 coming out of this. Those are the people that's probably really upset, not understanding who Detroit was and who Jacksonville could be. That's a fact. I see you all in the chat. Let me catch up on some of the comments. Where are we at? Corey Lott checking in. Mual, Hefe, Sports, Dre. Jay Tyler said that D needs to be within 15 to 25 in terms of 15 to 2. That's a huge gap. You know that though. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we're top 20. Jay. But Corey said, we got bullied in the first half. In the middle of the defense stays wide open. The defense is open on the sideline, in the middle of the field, deep area. They open. Okay. King Ralph, what's going on, big dog? Appreciate you checking in. He said it's Eagles week. Fuck them. Excuse my language on the pod. You know what I'm saying? Look, hey, you say what you got to say, brother. Say what you got to say. Jay said we were sending out 5 in the patterns in the second half. First half was more max protect with no check down. and so much A-gap pressure with your running backs blocking. And then obviously when we talk about like John Bates is getting beat, your interior, Trey Turner, Andrew Norwell, Charles Leno. I did happen to I was able to finish the whole offense. Dre, we were talking about him Sunday. Charles Leno had a couple bad reps. Overall, he was all right. He actually competed very well, but definitely had a couple reps that could have been sacks. Well, he gave up one, so another one he could have gave up that could have been a sack. So, a way different surprise, I guess is the way I should say it. It was a surprise for me to see him play the way he did. It wasn't terrible, but you know it is what it is. Keep going. C Money checking in. What's going on, big dog? Kenneth says Scott Turner got to utilize the screen game more when teams come out blitzing early. And it's funny because he tried it a couple times early on. And like I think beyond the Detroit game, fellas, this screen game is a problem. Like they couldn't get shit going for real against the Jaguars either in the screen game. And what's even worse is that not every time, there was a good amount of times in which Washington tried to run a screen game and the opposing defense had a well-timed blitz that just blew everything up. Like, how the fuck do they know that Washington is running the screen? I really don't know, and my guess would be a tendency, or maybe just them being key, or Washington not hiding it well. I have no idea. Besides the fact that that's to the receivers. Another thing is the running back screens to Antonio Gibson. Every time that he tries to run one, the defensive line sniffs it out.
Yeah.
Like, in the first game, it's a pick. The second game, the defensive line, like the defensive tackle, was able to hawk Antonio Gibson down because he sees him peeling off. I don't know what's going on with the screen game, and that's very critical for certain situations, especially against the blitz. So, Kenneth, you are absolutely right, bro. That screen game has to be utilized more, but it also has to get better in terms of execution. I think that's the more important part. Where are we at? How do you guys feel about the recent addition on the D-line of John Ridgeway? Do you all got yes, AJ? I'm gonna show you that tomorrow. 100% agree. Like, I think this needs to be a gap scheme, power offense, because if you're trying to use these guys laterally in a zone offense, in a zone scheme, Norwell and Trey Turner can't do it. I'm gonna show that on the film tomorrow. And I'm not gonna say that they can't, but I'm like, you need to minimize the amount of times that you use that outside zone, that inside zone, stretch zone stuff. But to your point, yeah. So how do you all feel about John Ridgeway? I don't know if you all have an opinion about him, but Kenny asked, do you all have an opinion about him? And then we can get into Carson Wentz, the quarterback.
I haven't got a chance to look at him. All I know is that he was actually a 5th round pick this year in this year's draft, which is interesting. It's interesting in the sense that, he's a 5th round pick this year, but he's also interesting in the fact that he didn't stick with the team that drafted him as a draft pick this year. So, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen him, so I don't know what to make of him. To me, it sounds like desperation right now. They need bodies at the defense, especially the interior defensive line right now. They need bodies right there because the thing is, it's kind of scary to me in that sense because I'm hearing he has a groin injury. And when I hear groin injury, I think about the fucking Curtis Samuel groin injury of all groin injuries.
He's traumatized.
So, so I'm like, damn, is this going to be something we deal with all season with John Allen? I mean, but luckily Allen doesn't rely on quick twitch ability to play in the game, and he doesn't need that. But still, if it's going to make him less than 100%, that's concerning, especially with the depth in the D line. But I'll take a little closer look at him later. But I don't have much of an opinion on him right now.
Yeah, I didn't even know who he was until people started retweeting his Senior Bowl clips. I'm like, all right, that's what's up. That's what's up. We're gonna see. I think the bottom line, Brad, at the end for me, because I don't know if Montel had anything on Ridgeway, but the bottom line for me is that defensive line is in shambles right now. It's top heavy. At one point, we were talking about heading into the season, Dre, how the secondary was essentially top heavy and how thin the depth was. The defensive line became that now. Obviously, Phil Mathis going down, for me, it hurts. Like, that was my guy. Like, Phil Mathis was my guy. I was ready for him to because people keep calling him overdrafted in a reach, and now all of a sudden I gotta live with that for a whole nother year. Like, I'm tired of that shit. So I really needed him to play this year. But ultimately, him going down essentially puts a gap into how they're going to try to use these guys. But another thing too, outside of that, with them being thin, they keep bringing in these younger guys like with no NFL experience, and I'm just sitting here saying like that was not the first guy that they brought in. Like the other guy that they brought in, they cut him. I forgot his name, but that's how long he was here for a cup of coffee. But they cut him, and now they bring in Ridgeway, who has no NFL experience either.
Donovan Jeter or something.
Yeah, Jeter, the Jeter dude. Like they bring him in and they cut him, but now they bring in another guy who has no experience. And I'm like, do you all want to win, or do you all want to like? Are you in here for the long-term development plan? Like, we ain't got time for that shit. Y'all don't have time for that. So that's the only thing I noticed with that D-line.
I kind of understand it. Only reason being is because a lot of times when you bring those older D tackles, one, it might be a cash grab, and two, a lot of those guys they really are washed. I know we don't like, if you can watch film, and I think some of them bring something to the table, but like I don't know much about Ridgeway. He may not be any good, you know what I mean? But as it pertains to like older D tackles, I've seen the Cowboys try to do it with Poe. I've seen teams around the league try to do it. Those dudes just aren't really like I'd rather them go with the younger guys who are hungry, who aren't making any money. But as Ridgeway, I know he's a big body. I looked him up. He's like 6'5", 320 plus. He's probably going to be a run stopper, but I don't know much about him. I know Cowboys fans are saying he's a steal, but I don't really value their football opinion, because they aren't really that smart. That's pretty much it.
Hey, look, Mual, when AJ come in, we got to start giving him the Undertaker music, man, because AJ is the dark cloud. That motherfucker come in, he ready to fire everybody, even the wrong motherfuckers.
Hey, I'm about to say, where your name at, man? Why you ain't fix your name, bro?
I was going to come on here like that, but I thought we had the Philly guy on. I was trying to be professional,
Oh,
he even win black.
You got 15 minutes.
AJ ready to fire people, man. He ready for heads to roll.
I'm gonna change it right now.
Bullshit.
I don't know how to do that. So
I got you, bro. I'm gonna bless you right quick. Hold on. How do I do this? How do I do this right quick? I got you. Give me 2 seconds. Washington. Hold on, I got you. Here we go. I got you, bro. All right. So let's go ahead and get into this Carson Wentz conversation with the boy AJ. AJ, how you feeling there? Everything good though?
Yeah, man, everything good. I'm just mad that I came in at the part where you want to talk about Carson Wentz.
Yeah, you got. I think you actually got perfect timing. I think that's what you joined.
Should have fucking told me we was about to talk about him.
No, he missed his favorite part, because we was talking about being unbothered and unconcerned. What we were, he missed that.
Oh yeah, let's go ahead. Talk about that. Yeah, we still got a little bit of time, so we can talk about Carson Wentz after that. We can get AJ thoughts. What's going on, Hawk? I see you in the chat as well. What you think about this team? Two weeks in, we asked if are you unbothered or are you concerned about how things are going? You can take that whichever angle you want to take it. But after your 2 games, what are you saying that has you unbothered or concerned?
I'm bothered by the fact that everything that we knew as football pundits, fans, also what we've been told early in the season by Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera, none of that shit was addressed and corrected. Just thought that schematically, our shit trumps everything. We already got the players, kind of told the fan base, hey, we need a middle linebacker. We need a veteran middle linebacker specifically. That's the end of the year press conference. And then after you acquire Wentz, it's like, oh yeah, we feel like we got our middle linebacker already on the roster and Cole Holcomb. And we know damn sure that's not the case. Like me, you, Dre, Hefe been on here several times where we done talked about it. We done been on spaces and we said that the linebacking position was an issue and it needed to be addressed, whether it be in free agency or even bringing in somebody younger and maybe letting them hold the reins. I mean, the Kobe Dean was sitting there. He didn't get drafted till 3rd round. Like
something like that.
He might not have the fastest 40, but right now it's about football IQ. Like that's really what it's about. Football IQ mixed with a ability to be able to play fast. Cole Holcomb, yeah, he ran a 4.5 in the combine, whatever. Jamin Davis is pretty fast, but nobody is thinking fast at that position on the field. So it's putting a lot of people down. So it's like I'm just down by the simple fact of the defense. I mean, when you make no adjustments to that side of the ball at all and trot out the same exact roster, same exact scheme, and we seen what the results were last year, I expect it to continue until there's a change made there, and the change has to be done with the person that's calling the plays. And unfortunately, I heard the presser yesterday from Ron. He's like, schematically, we feel good. So, fuck it. You feel me?
Ron was eating a ham sandwich when he said that shit too. Ron, he gave up on that presser.
You know what? But hey, listen, you know what's crazy about this whole thing too, bro? It's crazy how we haven't gotten the wins yet, and that's perfectly fine. I really think this is important. We talked about it with the media side after the game, right? And how he kind of has a certain tone towards the media after a game, like especially in an embarrassing game. He has a certain tone in which like he knows more than all of you all. Y'all are youngins. Like, back up. This is grown man's business. Don't worry about what we got going on over here type shit. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not going to overanalyze him eating in the presser, but what I'm saying about him eating in the presser itself is that he's trying to normalize the certain week that he's in. Like, he's trying to tell everybody that I'm calm. Are you calm? Are you tripping? Let's go ahead and continue on throughout this week. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm eating my sandwich. Let's go ahead and chop it up. Let's go ahead and get this media session, chop it up. Yeah, they said he was watching TVs. So it's like he wants. It's like it's a mind game with Ron Rivera, but it's like I think he thinks that some people don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's what it is. And then there's no, excuse my language, there's no niggas in the media to challenge him on that shit. Like, some of the people that's asking the questions don't really know football all the way. There's guys like John Kahn that knows his football. JP Finley knows his football. But some of those people don't really know it. And if you put it in perspective, man, this shit is looking just like his tenureship when it came to it in Carolina. That's exactly what this is looking like. Like, nothing is clicking. Nothing is hitting. I don't care how good of a person he is. His words aren't hitting home with his players. I said that all this would be an issue. Like, you bring it back the same team, even in Carson Wentz. Like, I know we're going to get into it. It's like, all right, cool. 2 weeks in, I still see the same exact issues that he's been having his whole career. I feel like he's holding on to the ball. I feel like Scott Turner is not a good play caller overall. I feel like some people got happy about, the points that were put up in the second half, but I mean, Detroit is literally like playing prevent defense.
No, they was. AJ, they weren't playing. Yeah, Jamal, Jamal, you want to step
in
on that?
They was playing some soft. They were playing.
I don't know if they was playing soft.
The defense they was playing was not the same. It was soft. It was definitely soft.
Now, AJ, your hate coming out now.
Fourth quarter, when they went down 15, the second time is when they start. So it was like 7 minutes left in the game. Is when they started playing soft coverage. Underneath, and they were allowing everything underneath to milk the clock. So 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter is when they started playing it. But outside of that, I don't know where AJ was talking, like what time frame, but 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they definitely were playing soft at that point. That's it. That's it. So y'all go ahead back to that. Go ahead back to the thing. There you go. Aside
from that, it's just more so like, I don't even really have anything positive really to say about the team. Because it's like offensively, I still haven't really seen them click the way that I want to. Like, yeah, you add in Carson Wentz into the mix, but the play caller, I don't know really what his offensive scheme is for me to really judge that all the way. Yeah, I'll give him a couple more weeks. I'll see how this goes against the Eagles, but I don't really understand him as a play caller. I don't know what he wants to do. Some of the fans, including you, Mual, and Dre, maybe might say wait until Brian Robinson comes into the mix, but that's a rookie running back. You feel me? Like, at the end of the day, I don't even know if Scott Turner really wants to run the ball. I feel like he wants to throw it primarily all around the field, but he's not even doing that successfully and dialing that up. So it's like I really don't have much positive to say about the team because at the end of the day, I just feel like Ron doesn't care that much. You put it in perspective, this man got fired and got a new job with more responsibilities a couple weeks after. Like, it just does not make sense to me. And I blame Daniel Snyder for making that hire that quickly without really going through thorough candidates, and it's because the fact Ron Rivera.
Yeah, just ask Joe Gibbs.
Hey
Joe, who you got?
Even that. Joe Gibbs helped him with Carson Wentz supposedly too, but it's like you didn't go through a thorough process, like, and you didn't have to because he fits under the minority category. So you really just had to interview him and be one and done. You ain't interview nobody else that I know of. I didn't hear any reports anyone else took a stab at, sitting in front of the Snyders to see who would be the head coach.
That's kind of every Snyder head coaching search, AJ. Like every Snyder head coach
that's the issue. He falls in love with certain
is.
people, and they just automatically get hired. There's no thorough process. Nobody's going through channels. If they happen to be Caucasian, he'll interview somebody already on the staff that's black and fit the quota and move on. But I just think that shit could get worse if this game is a blowout on Sunday. It could get real ugly from the player standpoint to the fan base standpoint. Like you're in year 3. I think Nick Siriani is in year 2, and it's night and day between franchises. You have a franchise that realized, oh shit, maybe we might have slipped into the playoffs, but we're gonna go ahead and piggyback off of that energy and that momentum. We're gonna add to our roster. We're gonna add a Hassan Reddick. We're gonna move these draft picks and add an AJ Brown. We're going to also move another draft pick and add Jordan Davis to the mix to go with Javon Hargrove and Fletcher Cox. Yeah, we released Fletcher Cox, but we're going to bring him back at a different salary. We're going to go ahead and mix with Darius Big Play Slay. We're going to go ahead and make this trade for C.J. Gardner-Johnson from New Orleans Saints. Meanwhile, Washington's just sitting back like, shit.
We love the players that we like.
Let's see what David Mayo and John Bostic doing. By the way, Ioannidis, we gonna send you out of here, even though we said you was good. Bro, that team took advantage of the opportunity that even if we feel like they slipped into the playoffs, they look bad against Tampa Bay, but they were like, oh no, we're gonna be aggressive this offseason. We're gonna keep this shit going. Whereas in Washington, when they did slip up into that playoff position, they did nothing to add to that mix. And you have the same exact team, and Carson Wentz is not Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady by any means to say that he could fix all, be all. Like, no way.
So AJ, what if they beat Philadelphia? Before we get, I do want to know, what if they do beat Philadelphia?
What if Michael Jackson comes back to life and moonwalks Sunday night?
Is that unrealistic? God damn. That's -0 chance.
Agree.
Hey, it's funny.
You see they struggling with Bunch, and there's some shit on here I don't be saying because I know behind the closed doors like shit been going on, but it's like you see that they struggle in bunch formation. They're gonna play a bunch of bunch formation. Jalen Hurts ran for over 50 yards last night against Minnesota. He might run for 100 against Washington because they have no discipline. I just don't see them winning at all. Like somebody gonna have to. Never mind. I ain't even gonna say what I was gonna say. But it's going to have to be like some serious injuries that happens on Philadelphia side of the ball for that to get shut down.
So I don't even know if we're going to have another time to talk about Carson. So let's kind of like macro it and fit Carson in because it's actually part of the conversation. Obviously, we got Jeff Warren coming in through on the Philadelphia Sports Table. He's going to give us a quick preview of who Philly actually is. And just get an understanding of what we're walking into as we gear up for week 3. Fellas, can their offense overcome like what you see in the offense, right? Can it overcome the issues that they're going on defense in terms of like Montel, you talked earlier in the show about like the explosiveness. Dre, you're a believer in the offense. I'm a semi-believer in the offense. I have my concerns that, like I outlined earlier in the show. Can this offense overcome the deficiencies on defense? Because I don't see that anything changing defensively.
Good, Montel.
Yeah, Montel, you got the floor.
I personally feel like the defense, of course, they can't continue to be this bad. But I do think it's hard to remain as bad as they were last week, especially with some of the opponents we have coming up. We got some favorable games, the Bears, the Texans, the Falcons. That's another thing people don't pay attention to is we don't have a lot of explosive offenses coming up. And you may think like, oh, anybody's going to score on this defense. That's It's just not the case. The Titans aren't explosive offensively this year. I do think that offensively, we are capable again if the defense is just competent. Like this offense is really explosive, and like you mentioned, and I keep going back to this. At the rate that the receivers win, we can run with anyone. And I know a lot of people are oohing and ahhing over Philly right now, and they do. They look excellent. They look like a powerhouse. I don't think that that's not a winnable game, and people are going to look at me like I'm crazy. Now, if we go out there and get blown out 38-6, which I don't believe that they can do, I do think if they go out there and get blown out, it's an issue. But I think that that's a game that they can win. Not last year, we could have beat Philly with whatchamacallit at quarterback. I don't even remember his name. You know what I mean? Like we could have beat that team. We had a chance to beat them both games, and they are a better team. But that's another thing people don't talk about is the fact that division games are a toss-up. I don't care who it is. You know what I mean? And the NFL is so weird. Philly looks like world beaters right now. Anybody can lose any given week. That's just how it is. We seen the Jags beat the Bills last year. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how the NFL works. And as it pertains to Carson, and I'm going to get into Carson right now because y'all know.
Martel,
would you let him go because we got 4 minutes on this zone.
Yeah. Y'all know Carson's my guy. At the end of the day, I know people don't want to entertain it. He's balling right now. He is literally he's tied for number 1 in touchdowns, and he's number 2 in yards. It is hard, and the thing is, and this is the thing that concerns me. With Indy last year, he didn't have any weapons, and no one wanted to give him credit. He threw 27-7 with no weapons. You see Indy this year; they're that same team. This year, Carson Wentz is the main catalyst for this team's success. The defense looks bad. There is no run game. The O-line got smacked in the mouth, and guess what? He threw 3 tutties and 300-plus yards again. Nobody wants to give him credit. Why? Whatever the agenda is, I don't understand it. I don't know. The man has 7 touchdowns and 650 yards through 2 games, and he hasn't had a run game, and his defense has been bad. Let's go ahead and give him – it's okay to give him some credit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he's Tom Brady. I'm not saying he's going to keep up this pace. At the end of the day, he is balling. And I want to say balling. And I got to emphasize Slim is balling because a lot of people don't want to give him credit. I'm not saying he's going to end the season like this, but yo, playing some football right now. And we got to get that man his flowers because he hasn't had much help outside of the receiving core. And I think the O-line looked good the first game. And that's another thing I want to mention. When you see when he has time, he is accurate. He's delivering passes. He's getting the ball down the field. He's going through his progressions. Let's give my man some credit, man. AJ, I want you to give him some credit.
No, hold up.
But
Montel, AJ turning it. If he was white, he'd be a tomato right now. You done pissed
balling,
him off.
bro. He got the same amount of touchdowns as Josh Allen and more yards, bro. I know you don't like him, but he hooping, bro.
We're too used to seeing mediocrity at quarterback. That's why some people feel like he's balling.
Come on, AJ.
Done,
I mean, a balling quarterback to me is we winning games. Like that first half last week was terrible, bro. Like,
we seen balling quarterbacks lose. We seen balling quarterbacks lose. Lamar Jackson balled out this weekend and lost.
Hey, Lamar Jackson and Wentz should never be mentioned again.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's not. I'm just saying, balling quarterbacks. I mean, you could be balling in the game and lose if your defense ain't playing.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Lamar was definitely clicking. I don't know. I don't go back and watch the tape. I haven't watched the tape back like these 2 games for real. But I mean, I just see that there's some plays on the field that he could have made.
That's every QB, bro.
And yeah, but these were right in his face. And even some opportunities, I just like, we could have been sitting here talking about that fucking flea flicker that he just threw up in the air to God knows who. Yeah, like it's still the same Wentz to me. That's what.
But
I'm
Trevor Lawrence threw a terrible pick last weekend. Josh Allen threw 2 picks last weekend. If we want to get into it, we could get into it because this quarterbacks do this every week, man. Tom Brady didn't look great.
Joe Burrow thrown like 100 of them.
Joe Burrow threw 4 picks. It happens, bro. And we talking about the
names that you mentioned are elite quarterbacks. You mentioned Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Like those are elite quarterbacks. Like
the point is, Josh Allen had one that was on the receiver. But
I mean, at the end of the day, I'll let you think Carson Wentz. Well, I'll let you have the fact that Wentz is balling. Well, it's too early in the season,
He
man.
is balling though right now. I mean,
through 2 games though, you got to through 2 games. He's balling.
Yes.
You got to give him credit. I'm not saying he's going to end the season like this. Through 2 games,
what is the definition of balling?
All right, and we can
yards to 7 touchdowns. What are you talking about? You don't think that's balling? You don't think 7 touchdowns through 2 games is balling, AJ? 8 for 8.
It's top 10 right now. Right now, it's top 10.
You playing catch up. You down 22-0. You should get
That's
past
1 game.
yards.
That's 1 game.
But what about touchdowns? You know how hard it is to throw a touchdown in the red zone?
Man,
with
who
the
is this
12th
Jay
defender?
Tyler dude? Who is this Jay Tyler dude?
You don't want to give him his credit.
You out here every week just talking stupid shit.
It's okay. It's okay. You don't like him. You don't want to give him credit. But if
I just want to understand what balling is. That's my definition.
Bro, he leads the league in touchdowns right now.
I'd be like, all right, cool. But balling to me, I got a different definition of what balling is to me. That's what I'm thinking.
I'll take my QB leading the league in touchdowns through 2 games. I'll take that any year. And if you won't take that, then again, it might be personal, bro. It might be personal, bro.
Would you take Jameis Winston 30 for 30, 5,000 yards?
Wentz isn't doing that
Jameis
right
Stan, so
I'm just saying.
I'm a Jameis Stan.
He's not doing that right now. And again,
I feel like that's a sweet cop out, Drake, because I'm in the same boat. I can't talk about that.
But
I'm just saying in general, would you?
Nah, I wouldn't take 30 for 30. But I don't think Wentz is going to give us 30 and 30. And that's another thing. He's thrown the ball 40 plus times in both games. You putting everything on. You putting everything on the level, and he's delivering, bro. You putting everything on.
I wasn't comparing Jameis Winston's statistics to Wentz. I was just wondering if that's considered balling or not.
I think
5,000 yards, 30 for 30.
It's not a bad season, but 30 interceptions is quite outrageous, bro. 30 interceptions, that's hard to do.
It was common back in the day, though. Like, I mean, not 30 interceptions, but quarterbacks throwing a lot of interceptions.
12 touchdowns, 20 picks, and you winning the Super Bowl. All right, hey, Montel, you sticking around for Philly, or you about to go ahead and handle your business?
I'm gonna stick around.
I gotta stick around so you can hear about Carson Wentz. All
right, so we're gonna go ahead and bring in the good man, Jeff.
Hear about your son.
Hey, I see y'all in the chat. Chevy, Merle, what's going on, Merle? Jay, Big Dog, what's going on? Appreciate you checking in. Yes, Jay, Carson does not do 30 for 30. He doesn't throw that many picks. It's the type of picks that he throws. But let's go ahead and get Jeff in right now so we can go ahead and continue on this conversation about Philly, Carson Wentz, and some other things going on. Jeff is checking in, like I said, the Philadelphia Sports Table podcast. Jeff, man, appreciate you joining me tonight, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I love how I'm seeing Coach Mual back there, just kind of like chilling out, letting the guys argue with each other, talking about balling. You know what balling is? Do you know what balling is? Because I was listening before you guys came on. Do you know what that is? Anybody in the league that isn't me. Okay, so I'm a 45-pound white pale skin guy who's definitely overweight. Everybody in the league is balling. That's my. You
can ball a cornhole. Do you play cornhole? You can ball it.
Oh my!
I love it. Oh, hey, that's what balling is. Everybody in the league.
So we got Jeff in here, man, and Jeff is in a different situation than Washington. Philly is for some they're NFC contenders, obviously heavy NFC East favorites. They just come off a 24-7 dub against the Minnesota Vikings. Jeff, man, what's the status or the vibe around the Philadelphia Eagles after their first 2 wins of the season?
I mean, of course there's excitement, but I go back to thinking about, as an Eagles fan, how amazing it is for this team since coming off a two seasons ago where they went 4-11-1. I mean, this team looks like it could be a real threat, like you said, in the NFC East, and not just the NFC East, but the NFC too. I mean, yeah, people today, the day after, talking like freaking Super Bowl. It's week 2. Pump the brakes. Let's not put the cart before the horse here. There's still a long way to go, and staying healthy at key spots is absolutely a must. But the turnaround from the last year of Doug Peterson's tenure, at the link is just, it's been really incredible to watch with Nick Siriani, his leadership, and how he's been able to take the veterans on this team and really get them to buy in. And then, of course, being able to relate to the younger guys coming up too. This Eagles team is a very young team now. And it's just been absolutely amazing to see. And it's, as an Eagles fan, as somebody who does a Philly sports podcast, I mean, of course, it's really exciting. But, like, I think for me as well, and if I'm pontificating and just going off here, just interrupt me. But if Darius Slay isn't the NFC Defensive Player of the Week when the award comes out tomorrow, there should absolutely be an investigation. I mean, 2 picks, a career-high 5 pass breakups, shutting down Justin Jefferson, who's obviously a top 3, if not number 1 wide receiver in the entire league. Throw in the fact that Vikings coach, what's his name, Kevin O'Connell, completely disrespected Slay when interviewed on the telecast when he said, it was a matchup that definitely should favor Jefferson. And he just better win Defensive Player of the Week. Just an amazing turnaround with regard to this team. I'm excited about it, man.
Yeah, I think for everything that we saw in Philly, the first game of the season, obviously giving up 35 points, I think that the defense, I don't even think that 35 points indicates like the success that they had in a sense. And I know it wasn't like a perfect day against Detroit, but I think if I had to ask you, I would lean that the second game against the Vikings kind of reflects exactly how this defense would be playing against opposing teams in the opposing teams in the rest of this season. My bad.
Oh yeah, no, I completely get what you're saying too. I mean, like you said, what Eagles fans see are those 35 points that the Lions hung on them last week. What they see is a deployment of personnel that doesn't seem to, play into the defense's strengths. That's what we saw in week 1. What we wanted to see, because we know the defense has the personnel, is what Jonathan Gannon gave us in the 24-7 win over the Vikings on Monday night. Gannon ratcheted up the blitz too, and I think that was an important part of what we saw on Monday night. Against the Lions, he blitzed 15% of the time, and against the Vikings, he doubled that. In fact, more than doubled that. 33% of blitzes came from Jonathan Gannon and the personnel this week. So they made adjustments, and I think that as an Eagles fan is great to see, that whether it's Nick Sirianni, whether it's Jonathan Gannon, if they see something is not working, a lot of the 4 defensive linemen up front were just not working in terms of plugging those gaps last week. We saw a lot more 5 defensive linemen just up front, just clogging the holes. And let's not forget about Fletcher Cox too. Jesus, Fletcher Cox on the downslide of his career, of course, but he was just active all game long. He was part of a sack for the second straight week. This time he didn't have to share it with Brandon Graham like he did last week in Detroit. He had 3 tackles, just helped to clog those running lanes. Dalvin Cook wasn't able to do much of anything last night. A lot of that was because of Fletcher Cox and just the rotation of personnel that Jonathan Gannon's been able to bring in these first 2 games, man. And it's really exciting. But again, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We still got a lot of football to play. A lot of football.
When you look at the offensive side of the football, let's put it this way. Actually, you know what? I don't. It's no need to get messy. We can talk about Jalen Hurts. What's going on? Right. What's going on with your quarterback Jalen Hurts? 2 games in, he has obviously. I think it's his 3rd year. Yeah, his 3rd year. I was trying to remember for a second, but this is his 3rd year. Obviously, 2nd full season as a starter. Is he winning the bet that the management had of him? Because obviously this was a year in which he was on a trial run, and they're betting. I don't even know if they're betting against him or for him that it'll work out. But clearly they have their ace stashed, in that we have a couple 1st-round picks in 2023. If this don't work out, we're gonna go ahead and get a quarterback. Is he winning the situation that he's in right now?
I think so. You see, I believe this Eagles front office and even his teammates know what his ceiling is. We saw what that ceiling was yesterday, arguably the best game of his NFL and Eagles career. He is somebody who not just has the ability to play amazing football on the field, he's an amazing person off the field too. He has the locker room. And I think that's the clear contrast that we are seeing in Philadelphia from Carson Wentz. I mean,
Yeah,
really,
that's all I'm about to say. I ain't want to get messy, but I'm here for it. Let's talk a little bit. Go
really,
ahead.
I mean, we are seeing the leadership that Jalen Hurts is bringing. Carson Wentz didn't have that. It was plainly obvious in reports that have come out, not just since Carson Wentz has left, but even when he was in Philadelphia. And those reports created a lot of angst, a lot of animosity, a lot of question marks in the locker room and amongst the teammates. And when you have your teammates questioning you, your dedication, and what you're really doing on the field and even off the field, how it all translates together, we don't have that with Jalen Hurts. We have not seen that. We see a guy who's showing up for work. We see a guy who is not just, I hate to call it work because, man, if I could play this game, it'd be fantastic every day. It'd be great. But really, Jalen Hurts, knowing what he is, knowing who he is as a person and how that translates to the field, I absolutely love watching it. I love seeing it. The guy's a workhorse, and you can tell that he continues to hone in on his craft. Last week against the Detroit Lions, on our post-game podcast, I'm saying, man, his pocket management was terrible. And it was. It reminded us a lot of what we saw last year. Difficulty going through the progressions, the processing within the pocket, and even getting up to that second pocket just wasn't there last week. I have no idea what happened this past week in practice, but it was a complete 180. It was so amazing to see. And I think Eagles fans say, you know what? He could be that franchise quarterback in the future. Again, we still have a bunch of games left to play, but man, he has really, really made a difference. And I love that he's under center, man. I love it.
Hey, Jeff, so, with you bringing up Jalen Hurts and, now saying that maybe he could be the quarterback of the future.
Yeah.
Wasn't the feeling going into the season that he wasn't the quarterback of the future and that you would be looking for someone else to run the franchise as far as being the quarterback?
Absolutely. It goes to what I was saying earlier about the fact of, and even what we saw last week in Detroit, just the pocket management hasn't been there. And that's something that I have noticed since he was a starter last year. It just wasn't getting any better necessarily. Footwork necessarily not there in the pocket as well. Too many times. It is great. He is such an amazing athlete where he can roll out and get you that first down and get you those yards. But that play, it's only sustainable for so long. And I think what we saw, again, to answer your question, because of what we saw last year and the first week of the season, I think that's why people said, okay, we've got 2 first-round picks coming up in the draft. Maybe we are going to be getting a quarterback and selecting a quarterback. You fast forward to this past Monday night, and now attitudes are certainly shifting for sure. So, I mean, that was the prevailing thought process because he was showing us something on the field, and Monday night he showed us something completely different.
Okay. Jeff, I was just going to ask really quickly, because I wanted to know, I mean, the Eagles, everyone talks about how strong of a team they are, and they look very impressive right now. But from an Eagles fan standpoint, do you have a perceived weakness right now?
We're always looking to have the carpet pulled out from under us because that's Philly sports. we're looking at Jalen Hurts coming up with an ACL over the course of the next couple weeks. That's what we're expecting. But really, I think that when you look at any perceived weakness on the team, I think you have to just kind of look at consistency. The offensive line wasn't consistent last week. They looked fantastic, like the offensive line that they should be in Monday night's game against the Vikings. But in terms of like a real weakness, I honestly think, and they're proving me wrong at this point, are the running backs. I came into this particular season saying, okay, I think the running backs are actually going to be the weak spot on this team because Miles Sanders, he's been hurt. And Boston Scott, we know what his ceiling is. Kenny Gainwell, he is hopefully going to be one of the backs of the future, but a change of pace type of back. And there were a lot of question marks and I think vulnerabilities with the running back position, but Miles Sanders has 176 yards on the season and he's doing a phenomenal job. He's averaging 5.9 yards per carry. I can't be upset with that at all. I can't be upset with that. So it seems like we have a bell cow running back now. Weaknesses, again, it's week 2. I'm not sure, but I would have to say maybe the running back position. I don't know. I hope I answered your question there.
Yeah, so last one for me, Jeff, and obviously I appreciate you joining me this evening.
I love
for
this.
me, though, Nick Sirianni, 2 years in, and we were actually talking about him, comparing him to Ron and Rivera, how his tenure has happened throughout the offseason and how he addressed the offseason. Talk about, what happened last year, understanding that Sirianni and management was in a position where, they kind of, from a talent standpoint down the stretch, like they lucked into the playoffs in terms of the opponents that they faced, but Philly never took their foot off the pedal, understanding that there was opportunity to still get even better in the offseason. Talk about how Nick Sirianni has kind of transformed the team, but also like other factors that contributed to it, and how I guess he was able to, because it's only 2 games in. We don't know what's going to happen the last 15 games, but it seems like 2 games in that everything that they have done to this point in the offseason is actually proving itself on the field 2 games in. So kind of talk about how that thing happened in the offseason, the playoffs, and then where you are today with Nick Sirianni.
I mean, with Nick Sirianni, I think, again, I go back to what I said. I think that he was able to not only get the locker room and get him in the palm of his hands last year, and I think he's been able to sustain that. But you talk about other outside variables. I also think Howie Roseman being basically the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles for as long as he has been, the guy has learned a lot, got extremely arrogant, egocentric after the Super Bowl win, thought he knew everything, and then learned, no, I do not know everything. I'm not going to be able to take the same kind of calculations that I was able to do during that 2017 season and bring it to fruition every year. The league doesn't work like that. The league changes. And I think Howie Roseman has changed in that regard as well. I think Howie has learned about not just roster construction, but what the future looks like. I think Howie is really looking at even 2 and 3 years down the road. And if Jalen Hurts continues to play at this high level, and again, even if the offense in general continues to play at a high level, one stat that I just wanted to mention really quick is that the Eagles, they set a franchise record by converting 45.7 third down conversions last year under Nick Sirianni. So after going 7 of 13 on Monday, they have now converted 7 of 30 third downs in 2 games this season, which is 56%. That's pretty crazy. And I don't think they're going to be able to sustain that 56%. But if they're anywhere near that, it's fantastic for the level of play on the field and the number of wins, I think. But I think Howie Roseman knew what he needed to get done. It's a wide receiver game, quarterback to wide receiver. I think he understood how high Jalen Hurts' ceiling was. Needed to get A.J. Brown, needed to get a true number 1 receiver. Yeah. We haven't had a true number 1 receiver in Philadelphia. I mean, you guys following the division, my gosh, the wide receivers have been terrible. They've been terrible, egregiously terrible at times. However, he knew what he needed to get done, and being able to have a scouting department that's able to have longevity at various offensive line positions, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, being able to find a diamond in the rough in the 7th round, and Jordan Mailata coming over from Australia as a rugby player, and now a top-tiered left tackle in this league. I think Howie deserves a lot of credit. And I got to tell you, I've criticized him over the years, but I got to give him credit where it's due. And I think he's one of those outside variables that we're talking about here, aside from Nick Sirianni.
Absolutely.
I hope I didn't
AJ,
bore you.
No, you're good. AJ, did you have something?
Yeah, I just had a question in regards to this weekend's game against the Washington Commanders. Last night's game looked great for Philadelphia in the first half. Second half, you guys put up no points.
Yep.
And it was still a game that Minnesota was still in, if it wasn't for their quarterback having to be somebody named Kurt and last name Cousins. If that wasn't the case, we would have had a much closer game. Are you concerned going into Sunday that, the offense not clicking in the second half may linger into Sunday's game against Washington, even though their defense might be porous at best? But
yeah.
Do you have any concerns there? Because there really wasn't any movement of the ball much second half from the Eagles offense after Minnesota adjusted coming out of the locker room.
Absolutely. I'm concerned because it's a division game. I mean, even taking aside what we saw on Monday night and kind of just putting that to the side. It's a division game. I'm worried about the Giants at times. Of course, worried about the Cowboys at times. Maybe not so much with Dak being on the bench, but I mean, we saw what Cooper Rush did. I mean, he was a pretty serviceable backup, and you need that in these leagues. So I am concerned because it's a division game. I'm concerned because when it comes to Washington and Philadelphia, over the years, it is a knockdown, drag-out type of game all the time. And one small mistake, whether it's a fumble, whether it's in somebody's territory, momentum consistently shifts in these division games. And it happens all the time. That I'm very concerned about that, for sure.
I got a quick question for you, Jeff. Man, I already value your football opinion a little bit. I want to ask you. I'm serious, man.
Thanks,
I
man.
appreciate guys who know ball. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
But I could see like last night. You know, I'm on Twitter a little bit sometimes, and last night was an impressive win for Philly. I think there's a little bit of a recency bias with a lot of fans, and I'm cool with some Philly fans, and when I tell you I hate Philadelphia with a passion, I'm a fan of Jalen Hurts. I'm a fan of Hurts, but I can't stand Philly. I can't stand majority of the fans, but you seem to be pretty reasonable. I want to ask you.
I can't stand some of the fans either, for God's
sake. If we erase last night's victory from everybody's memory, and we're going off of what you did against Detroit, what the defense gave up, and what happened last year, what are your expectations for your mob this season?
Like I said, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I really don't. When I did our regular season record predictions on my podcast, I had 11 wins for this team, and that could be very generous. The reason I had those 11 wins is because we actually have playmakers now on this team. We have Devontae Smith. We have A.J. Brown. And again, I do think that ceiling is high for Jalen Hurts. And I think we got great linebackers now. It's something the Eagles have not had in a long time. The fact that I have seen in 2 games, Eagles linebackers being able to cover somebody, that Alex Singleton is not back there running around like a chicken without his head off. And you can do that out in Denver. That's fine with me. But I just love the fact that some of the changes in the personnel that we talked about earlier during the offseason has brought confidence, I think, not only to the team, but of course to the fan base. But again, we can't put the cart before the horse. I think this game against the Commanders is going to be a difficult game. I thought the game with Minnesota was going to be close. I did. I thought it was going to be a 3-point game. I think this game with the Commanders is going to be a 3-point game. Look, Carson Wentz knows this team. Carson Wentz is, for the faults Carson Wentz has, he's not a dummy. He's not a dummy at all. The guy does know football. He knows football a lot better than I do and a lot of other people. So I like Washington's defense too, as much as I hate to admit it.
Oh man,
there is there are some defensive pieces that you all have that I wish we had. I really do. I mean, I think they're deployed?
Let's trade coordinators.
Well, no, I know. But do I think the defensive personnel is deployed the way it should be in Washington? No. And again, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the coordinator. It's like I love Ron Rivera too. I always have. I've always thought he was a fantastic coach, even when he was down in Carolina. I've always thought he was a great coach, but sometimes, and I mean this with no disrespect, but the organization sometimes doesn't necessarily allow coaches to be able to produce the best results. So I don't know. I hope I answered your question. I am concerned about this game, really taking the recency bias out of the picture. I'm concerned about the Commanders.
Well, let's get your prediction then, Jeff, and see what you got. It's Tuesday, so let's obviously take this with the fact that you can make amendments later in the week. I don't want to hold you to it, but what is your gut feeling on this Tuesday evening about the game against the Washington Commanders for Philly? Who wins?
I think it's going to be a 21-18 game, Philly. I do think Philly's going to win, but I think it's going to be 21-18. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I do not think the Eagles offense is going to be able to put up over 25 points on the road. I just don't think that's possible. I know what they did in Detroit. I think Detroit has some really good elements to their team. They've got a really, really above average offensive line that I think is extremely underrated. But again, it's a division game. If we were playing the Giants this week, I'd be feeling the same way. I really would. Division games are just different. It's got a different feel.
So if
Jeff.
it wasn't a division game, and let's say you guys were playing, I don't know, the New Orleans Saints,
Yes.
you would feel different as far as the production you would get from your team and the score
On the
overall.
road? On the road, you mean?
Let's say
If it's at the
home.
link, if it's at the link, oh my God, I'm taking the Eagles just because the electricity in that stadium against the Saints, I think it'd be too much. I would take the Eagles in a heartbeat.
Hey, you gotta be careful, man. My boy Jabu, Jameis Winston, man. He he a little mini Aaron Rodgers out here. You gotta be careful. He can sling it.
I know he could. I know he could.
Yeah.
I know.
But not, Jeff. I definitely appreciate you coming through tonight. I want to give you the floor to let everybody know where they can find you and hear from you, big dog. Again, appreciate you checking in.
Yeah, again, at Philadelphia PST, you can see my handle there. And Jamal, man, I appreciate you coming on our Opposition Territory show this week to do our Eagles Commanders preview. That's going to be a fun time. I know we're going to be recording that tomorrow. But PhiladelphiaSportsTable.com, that's where we have our podcast shows. You can check everything out over there. And, of course, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. So all podcast platforms, I think, out there at this point. We've been doing it for 9 years. We're the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. So doing it for a long time, over 9 freaking years. I can't believe I'm still doing this.
I respect that. Like I look at you and like that's sustainability in this thing. Like not many people reach 3 years, let alone 9. Like,
well, Mark, look, I want to ask Jeff one question before we get out of here.
Yeah.
And my question, I don't know, honestly, Jeff, I don't know if you're from Philly or not, but if you are you from Philly? Before I ask this question,
an hour north of Philadelphia. I live in
that's
Bethlehem.
good enough. That's good enough. Jeff, what's the best cheesesteak place in Philadelphia?
Delisandro's.
I went there. I told Jamal about that place. That's a great
Delisandro's.
Another place. But yes.
Yeah, Delisandro's and then Woodrow's. Woodrow's is coming in close second, but Woodrow's on South Street.
I'll check them out next time.
What about Ishkabibbles? What you think about Ishkabibbles?
I don't think I've ever eaten there.
Is that a real place?
For real?
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, Ishkabibbles. That's the first place I went to.
I don't think I've ever eaten there.
Went to out there.
I mean, if people are going to be going to Philly, you don't do the
Sound like
Pats.
a place you would run on Grand Theft Auto.
Don't do the Pats and Geno's thing if you go to Philly. Don't do that stuff. But Jim's
They definitely told me stay away from that. We did hit Delisandro's though. I was looking through my photo albums now. So Dre got me hip to that joint. We did go. That was the spot we went to.
It's all about the bread. You didn't like Delisandro's?
No, I said hit as in like good.
Oh, I thought you said hated it. I was like, oh my God, I was freaking passed out.
Delisandro's is good. Absolutely. Definitely worth the wait too. Absolutely.
I was going to say, you going to wait at Delisandro's, though. I went there too. I definitely waited for like an hour.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
But it is worth the wait.
Absolutely. Yeah, Delisandro's and Woodrow's on South Street.
Waited for an hour for some meat, huh?
Got to be spiced just right.
Time to end the show. Hey, Washington Commanders morning show. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. for everybody film session between Washington and Detroit. The fellas will be back Thursday to preview Philadelphia and Washington. Jeff, I appreciate you coming through.
Oh, man.
Hefe, Montel, you welcomed in anytime too. The fellas are out of here. Y'all enjoy your evening and all that good stuff.
Take care, bud. Take care. Yes.